Members, it's already past our scheduled time and we formed a quorum. The chairman, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, is otherwise engaged and he can't be present, so I'm standing in for him today. The first thing on the agenda is confirmation of minutes of our last meeting, dated the 20th of October. The Secretariat has not received any proposal for amendments. Can we confirm the minutes, please? Thank you very much, Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Second thing on the agenda, information paper issued since the last meeting. The administration has issued CB1 213/1516/01 on new agreement on trade in services under the framework of the Mainland and Hong Kong Closer Economic Partnership Arrangement. This is the information paper already issued to members. Item 3, date of our next meeting and the agenda. In January, on the 13th, the CEO will announce his policy address to be followed by policy briefings. So we meet with the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, the Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, and the Secretary for Innovation and Technology on the CE's 2016 policy address. That will take around 2 hours. And the second thing, continuing the funding support for technology transfer offices of local universities, partner state, key laboratories, and Hong Kong branches of Chinese National Engineering Research Centers through the Innovation and Technology Fund after 2015-16. That will take about half an hour. So the next regular meeting is scheduled for the 19th of January 2016. Given the long agenda, we'll have to extend the meeting by half an hour to 5 p.m. Any comments? If not, then we're going to extend the meeting by half an hour to 5. Next time. Outstanding issues. On the 24th of November, the Secretary wrote to the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development to relay our views. And we have included research and development of Chinese medicines into the list. Is scheduled for discussion in June 2016. And we have taken out the item on progress on the promotion of intellectual property trading. If members have no comments, then we move on to item 4. Item 4. Proposed retention of 1 AO staff grade C post under the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau. Please invite the administration to join us now. Let us welcome Mr. Daniel Zhang, Deputy Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, and Ms. Noel Zhang, PS for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs. Retention of a directorate post in the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau to be turned from a supernumerary post to a permanent post to continue to provide support for Hong Kong residents and enterprises in the mainland, to foster and strengthen cooperation relations between Hong Kong and the mainland, and to deepen regional cooperation between the two places. DS, would you like us to walk us through the paper? Thank you, Chairman. As he said. Our proposal is to retain D2 post within the Constitution and Mainland Affairs Bureau. And the PS duties can be divided into two main parts. First, to continue to support Hong Kong residents and enterprises in the mainland, and second, to foster and strengthen cooperation relations between Hong Kong and the mainland, in particular cooperation under the 9+2 arrangements and also our cooperation with Shanghai. A few years ago, we came to consult the members on creation of this post, and some members asked why it was a supernumerary post and not a permanent one. We said that we wanted to be cautious to see whether there will be long-term needs for the job, and it's now confirmed, and would like to turn it into a permanent post. Thank you. PS. Members do have questions. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. This post will become a permanent one. I'd like to know, in the past 3 years, how does the administration assess the effectiveness of the post in strengthening cooperation relations between Hong Kong and the mainland in areas of culture and innovation and cultural industries in particular? How has the post helped our development with the mainland? And there is the overall planning and strategy involving One Belt, One Road in the mainland. To have to adjust our strategy on the mainland in order to cope with the strategic development of the country. And what role will this post play, the incumbent of this post play in the future? Mr. Zhang, thank you. I'll take the first question, and then Mr. Zhang can supplement later. For this term of government, cooperations with the mainland is not confined to the economic front. For sports, culture, and innovation, now we have 5 ETOs and liaison units on the mainland. They've helped to foster cultural and innovative exchanges with the mainland. To be more specific, there may be exchange opportunities, exchange performances, and a large-scale publicity of Hong Kong on the mainland, not just to cover our economic and trade matters. There can be exhibitions, and there are display boards, and every year we have Hong Kong Week in different provinces of the mainland involving chambers of commerce. We've invited organizations from the cultural and arts sector to join. Would it be the number of visitors and the size of audience? I think they've been rather substantial, and our events have been widely covered by the media on the mainland. Sometimes we talk about tens of thousands of thousands or tens of thousands of visitors going to our events. Mr. Ma asked about the One Belt, One Road initiative. The government keeps track of the new development involving One Belt, One Road on the mainland. For provinces and cities and areas promoting one road, one belt, we have got activities in the 5 ETOs I mentioned. Fujian is one of the core areas under the One Belt, One Road initiative. In Guangdong and as well as Fujian, we have got other liaison units or ETUs. And for Shanghai and Beijing, together with Fujian, they are important provinces and cities in the Maritime Silk Road. Just last year, we opened the Shantung Liaison Unit. Of course, our liaison units and ETOs do not just cover the respective province where they are in. We've asked our ETOs to pay particular attention to the development of the Belt and Road Initiative. Different provinces have different plans to echo the initiative, and some of them have information available on their website. And in the central and western region, we have Wuhan and Chengdu ETO. They are closer to the Silk Road economic belt. We have not stopped here. We'll continue to see whether our network on the mainland can support the development of the Belt Road Initiative. In fact, there is not just the One Belt, One Road Initiative. There is also the Yangtze River Economic Belt, a strategic development area along Yangtze. And there is also the Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei Coordinated Development Program. So there are three strategic belts. We will see what opportunities they can bring to Hong Kong people and enterprises.
Follow up? No? Mr. Ma? Well, I think in your reply to my first question, I'd like to ask the administration, do you have plans to, like, for your mainland offices, designate officials to be responsible for cultural exchange? All along I've said that the government should consider that, or even, having an, set up an economic, trade, and cultural office. We've seen cultural exchange activities held, but often they tend to emphasize more the performing arts. But indeed, we have other sorts of art, like visual arts, on the mainland, visual arts festivals, paintings exhibition are held, a number of times, and they're both large and small-scale exhibitions. So can we promote local artists to take part in those, paintings exhibitions on the mainland? Or, on the other hand, can you let Hong Kongers know what's happening on the mainland so that the arts sector and particularly the visual arts sector in Hong Kong would know what's happening on the mainland? Sometimes local artists are not well aware. Would you try to, because you're on the front line, you have offices in the front line, so they know which are more important, influential events, so that people in Hong Kong and the mainland know what's happening and are better aware of what artists are there who could join in those events. Yes, I think in terms of providing information, yes, you made a very good proposal. Indeed, in the past few years, particularly in our liaison mainland offices, we do collect and disseminate information there. In recent years, particularly for any national policies that influence Hong Kong, we have done a lot more work in that regard. But just as Mr. Ma mentioned, the sector of cultural, artistic exchanges, whether we can disseminate more information in those areas, I will relay your point to my colleagues. And Mr. Ma also mentioned whether there can be designated officials responsible for the work based on our experience. As I said, whether in promoting culture and arts, often, well, actually every time we needed, the Hong Kong, the relevant bureau and department to collaborate, particularly LCSD. So we've seen that in our offices and LCSD actually have had close cooperation with each other. So on the one hand, since we have mainland offices there, and we would know, what are the preferences in various mainland cities, and we do bring all those information to the relevant department and bureau, particularly LCSD in Hong Kong. Can you be more concise in your answer? Yes.
呢方面嘅工作有。
Yeah. So simply put, we've done the work needed, and whether you want to have designated officers, I think we'll look into that. Okay. Well, I think there's no time for you to follow up. Next one is Liu Chun-kong. I think we'll set a limit of 5 minutes each. Yes. Okay, similar to what Mr. Ma just asked, indeed. You'll know that the country now is actively promoting One Belt One Road. As the Secretary just said, you have this Tianjin, Yangtze River synergy development plans. Even though we haven't got more details about those plans, but we know that there will be a synergy effect. And that means there will be new economic landscapes actually appearing. So to help Hong Kong enterprises making good use of the opportunities, so your proposal to retain the work or the post, so this post actually, besides intensifying operation, what actually can be seen or can be achieved by retaining the post involved? Yes, I think the work of the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau, including the actually directorate post, indeed will actually play a role of coordinating and promoting. So it will work closely with the Policy Bureau and other government departments, as well as mainland municipal mainland government officials at the municipal and provincial level. You said it right. The three major strategies now put forth by the country are at the preliminary stage, particularly One Belt One Road. You can look at it as an initiative that will span decades. So at this stage, for the SAR government, including our bureau, in terms of grasping the information, the policy goals, trends, and so forth, we need to keep collecting relevant information and also step up communication with the mainland counterparts. Now, I think we cannot yet give you any concrete details, but I can be sure that the developments in the pipeline, whether it stems from the mainland going out to other countries, not, and there are opportunities there, lots and lots of business opportunities. For concrete details, Chairman, let me just give you some examples, like our professionals, could actually do more in the legal sector, for example, arbitration, mediation, writing contracts based on Hong Kong laws are areas that we want to promote further. So, well, I think One Belt, One Road may be a bit vague at this point. Let's look at the 13th five-year plan then. The 13th five-year plan, emphasizes deepening cooperation between Hong Kong and the mainland, and also furthering opening up, and also deepening collaboration in the Pearl River Delta. So retaining this post, how does this retained post can help Hong Kong seize this new opportunity? In terms of, developing development in the 9+2 Pearl River Delta. Thank you. For the Pearl River Delta region, there is much potential for development. The State Council now has dedicated a law reform commission member to write a directive document governing the future development of the Pearl River Delta region. And also as member by the member, under the 13th five-year plan this year, there's also the specific mention on Hong Kong, saying that there should be a deepening of collaborations with Hong Kong and Macau. And also in the Pearl River Delta area, in terms of the whole system, in the past, there used to be an annual meeting for the Pan region involving commercial and trade delegations, and also a conference by chief executives and top leaders. But starting from this year, but besides the top official meetings, there were also another general conference every other year. This principal assistant secretary, his work will involve, as I said, the directive document. We would organize or coordinate various departments to see what input we could give to the directive document in terms of the future development of the Pearl River Delta region, and what strengths do we want to highlight in the document in relation to Hong Kong. And for meetings to be chaired by CE, we need to do a lot of preparative work for him, including organizing high-level meetings and what messages to be brought to the high-level meetings. So we need to get those preparations done, and that will be among the duties of the PAS. Next one is Lam Tafai. Chairman, I've got a question. I think if it's asked by Pan-Democrats, it would be better asked, but I'll try it. Well, I'd like to try to be more to the point. Well, this post is under the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau. In other words, the work will come under Constitution and Mainland Affairs. Well, now the electoral reform was rejected, proposal was rejected, and we all want to move forward, and yet the SL government says that they will not actually submit another reform bill in the remaining term, so there will be much less to be done, in other words. And the Teacher Council election is done. The biggest election outstanding will be the electoral election. So now you are to create a permanent post, but your workload under the Bureau has been reduced. Wouldn't you have more manpower left? Can you restructure your own staffing? Wouldn't that save public money? Because there'll be maybe more work for some of your staff to do. If someone just got the money and have nothing to do, he will feel unsatisfied either. So can you ask, or look at reallocation of your internal staff to take over the work? Of course, if you think there's a need to create a permanent post, I would support. But I just wonder why, after the electoral reform bill is defeated, you still need extra hands. Yes. I know I was not being to the point. I didn't ask, use some words in my question. DS, have you thought of reallocating your manpower? Yes. Internally, of course, we had considered internal reallocation of manpower. But, if you look at the upcoming elections, there are actually 4 more coming up, including the New Territories East by-election, electoral election next year, followed by the electoral commissions, and then the CE election. So there will be a series of elections coming up. In terms of election-related legislations, some are still being looked at by bills committees. or the discussion in ETCO. There are also the electors registration consultation document. So it's not that, when we can't have major or forthcoming electoral reform, then there'll be less work to do. In terms of manpower, you can't just say that those who are doing the constitutional work can take up this post. It's not really feasible. Okay, if it's not feasible, if that's what you think, I'll trust you. My other question is, now you're creating this as a permanent post. You said you wanted to promote collaborations between Hong Kong and the mainland and to deepen regional cooperation between the two places. Can you explain a bit, what is the relationship like now? Why do you need to further strengthen it? DS? After the handover, Hong Kong and the mainland, in terms of regional cooperation, government and government collaborations, the cooperation has increased and the relationship is getting better and better. And initially, there was only a mechanism for Hong Kong, Guangdong collaboration. Then there were Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong collaboration. I just want you to assess what's the relationship between the two places now like. Please tell me what you think of the relationship first before talking about how to further enhance it. Chairman, I meant when it comes to collaborations between governments, the relationship is very good. Both sides share the same willingness to deepen mutual cooperations. So, as Mr. Liu said, under the 13th Five-Year Plan, there is this emphasis on deepening cooperation between Hong Kong and Macau and the mainland. There's also mention that Hong Kong, in its economic participation in the mainland or helping opening up of the country, Hong Kong still has an important status.
So it is our assessment that there is tremendous opportunities ahead. The question is whether we can grasp these opportunities. Mr. Ma Fong Kwong, second round. Thank you, Chairman. We do know whether ETOs on the mainland are aware of changes in mainland laws that would affect Hong Kong. To quote a simple example, the NPCC is now discussing a law to promote films, to promote the development of films. As the FC in this sector, we will be greatly affected because we have many movie makers working on the mainland. If I were not or the NPC, I wouldn't have known this. And the consultation period just ended last week, and I don't see any information or alert from the administration. Of course, I am now organizing an occasion to gather views, a forum to gather views from the sector. When there are important things such as legislative amendments on the mainland, how come our ETOs have not relayed the message to it? Is it because the responsible officers are not seeing it enough? If not, whose duty is it? Theoretically speaking, our ETOs should let us know what's happening there so that we can consider making our submissions and responding to these proposals. Yes, our ETOs, including our TTC, so on and so forth, for China, for mainland laws and regulations that would have an impact of Hong Kong, they are already very vigilant. Regarding the case just quoted by Mr. Ma, I have to double check to see whether there was any omission. And for collecting information, well, we have spared no efforts in this regard. In the past, we just mailed different newsletters and print materials to our chambers of commerce. But now we may make use of the internet and email to disseminate such information, and our ETOs have started to use WeChat, and not P2P. Rather, everyone can subscribe to the app, and then they will have access to information. This is very popular among Hong Kong enterprises or businessmen on the mainland. And we disseminate such information to major chambers of commerce on a regular basis. If I remember correctly, we have up to 100 or 200 such messages by our different ETOs. But of course, when there are many messages, we may not be able to single out things close to our heart. So we will work harder in this regard. And for major mainland for matters involving even taxation and farming, so on and so forth, we make arrangements with enterprises on the mainland in order to exchange information. This is very important. Concerning the movie industry, I think I have to double check first. Ms. Assembly Lau. Well, Chairman, you know, recently our tourism industry is not doing very well because there have been fewer mainland visitors to Hong Kong. Have you collected views on the mainland? Is it indeed a lot of negative sentiments towards Hong Kong? And there was the incident of a mainland visitor being assaulted in Hong Kong or killed in Hong Kong. And some complain that they cannot buy baby formula in Hong Kong. So have you received any information in these areas? Of course, the ETOs have collected views concerning Hong Kong on the mainland from the official and community sectors, and also covered in the media. Of course, there are incidents that are bound to be rather negative. This is a fact. I want to know their views. Now, you know, I can't enter the mainland, and I don't read information from the mainland very often. Go to the internet. Well, if since the officials are here, I think they might as well tell us. Otherwise, there is no need to convene any meetings. We just check the internet. And Mr. Martineau, if you are interested, you can go and tell us later. Yes, a lot of resources from the ETOs are devoted to explanation, communication, publicity. I think that will create positive impact on the mainland. I think it is hard to give a quantified answer to Ms. Assembly Lau's question. Sometimes we may have contacts with officials there as well as the media, and it's all about impression. It's hard to quantify their sentiments, but I can say that there are some impacts, but we must be forward-looking. I don't think they can help Hong Kong. Can't you be more frank? As Mr. Martineau said, we can check the internet. If that's the case, there is no need to create a post. I'm not asking you to fabricate facts. You tell legislators what views you have collected. You ask us to be forward-looking, but people are not interested. Visitors don't want to come to Hong Kong because they don't know what has happened here. So why are government officials so scared? Are you scared? Well, there is nothing to be afraid of. It may be easier to refer to specific incidents, but a lot has happened in Hong Kong, and responses to different incidents may vary. So it is hard to there is nothing to hide, but it's hard to give you any specific answer. Do you accept the answer, Chairman? Of course, I do, due to time constraint. Mr. Lam Tai Fai, please. I'm afraid you can only have 3 minutes. Thank you. After the handover, we are a part of the big family of the mainland. I spend most of my time in Hong Kong. Next to it is the mainland. I have been working in the mainland for a few decades, and my impression is there are more conflicts between Hong Kong and the mainland, and we do mention this in our chats with friends on the mainland. When you want to boost manpower to deal with relations between Hong Kong and the mainland, you must face up to it. You cannot try to beautify the facts. You cannot ignore the facts. And I think all things should be tackled as source, and we have to face up to them. We have no choice but to face up to these facts and resolve the problems as source. Otherwise, it's useless to write so many paragraphs on how to step up relations. If you really want to know the relations, you have to be in touch. You have to have personal experience. Yes, people may tell off officials for visiting Japan, but I don't think we will criticize officials for going to the mainland. Even if I ask you how you can promote relations between Hong Kong and the mainland, you will be giving me the same answer. So I don't want to ask these questions. But please do understand our concerns. We are afraid that if we do not sort out the relations, then things will only deteriorate. Please don't cheat yourself and don't deceive yourself and think that our relations will gradually improve. Yes, you've heard members' comments, and I entirely subscribe to Mr. Lam Tai Fai's views. I think there are more and more negative sentiments pent up in both Hong Kong and the mainland. And if you do not address these issues, we can't really see a comeback of visitors to Hong Kong. Most members here are in support of the creation of the post. And for the financial implications, I think you have to go to the Finance Committee to ask for funding. Dr. N. Jiang, we are actually creating 3 posts, and the total cost will be over $4 million. That's not a big sum, but we want to know how much can they achieve. I'd like to ask, apart from these 3 officers, what will be the establishment of the office? What office? This office. Well, in Hong Kong first, let's set aside the staffing on the mainland. You are talking about the CMAB. How many are there in the CMAB? Well, these ETOs are under the responsibility of the CMAB. And these officers are supposed to support the work of all government bureaus and departments. So we have a number of officers on the mainland. And Hong Kong has got this coordination office. What is the establishment of the Hong Kong coordination office? We are talking about the creation of a D2 post, a PAS, or a PAS, Principal Assistant Secretary, and under him there are 2 assistant secretaries and also 2 executive officers and also 2 clerical officers. I don't know whether that can answer Ms. Dr. N. Jiang's question. So there are 7 altogether. The administration just told us that there is frequent communications and exchange with the officers on the mainland. I think the Beijing office is also under your bureau. Now, we are businessmen. If you have such a big office in Hong Kong, perhaps it may be better for people stationed on the mainland to do the job. If you are sitting in an office in Hong Kong, you may not understand the situation on the mainland well. All right, you want to employ more staff to improve relations between Hong Kong and the mainland. There are over 50 cities and 30 municipalities, so on and so forth on the mainland. You want someone in Hong Kong to head the officers on the mainland. Can they really do their job? You have 7 officers in Hong Kong. Or what will be the focus of your work in the future? Is it One Belt, the Belt and Road Initiative? Please tell us clearly, and then we can judge whether these 4 extra officers are worthwhile. The CMB-AB plays a few roles. One of coordination, one of promotion, and one of collaboration. We do not just rely on the 5 ETOs and the 5 mainland liaison units. There is also coordination of bureaus and departments in Hong Kong. There is cooperation in different aspects with the participation of different bureaus and departments. We're just like a general manager. We oversee the work of the ETOs and liaison units in the mainland. We also do housekeeping and human resources arrangements.
So there are some roles that have to be performed in Hong Kong. So DS, I think we need to move on to the next item. Agenda item 5, further development of Hong Kong Science Park. So let's invite the administration to come in. First of all, let's welcome the Secretary for Innovation and Technology, Mr. Nicholas Yang, who is attending our panel on commerce and industry for the first time. And secondly, we have with us the Permanent Secretary for Innovation and Technology, Mr. Choi Wing-hing, Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Ms. Annie Choi, and Assistant Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Mr. Vincent Tang, CEO of Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, Mr. Alan Ma. Secretary going to take us through the paper? Thank you. Well, on behalf of the panel, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you, Chairman. Yesterday, at the IT and broadcasting panel, the joint meeting between the panel and PCI, I briefed members on the future work of the Bureau. And today, together with representatives of the Hong Kong Science Park, I and my colleagues will actually introduce to members the expansion plan for Hong Kong Science Park so as to meet the need for more spaces in the sector. So the government supports the expansion of the park because this represents a good use of the current site. As for the financing arrangement, government approval has been obtained. We hope that you will offer valuable opinions on the expansion plan. Now I'll invite the CEO of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, Mr. Alan Ma, to talk about the plan for the expansion. Mr. Ma, please. Thank you, Chairman, members. The Innovation and Technology Commission has already submitted a paper on the expansion. But I'd like to use the next 10 minutes to make a report on the situation now and the rest. The company was set up 14 years ago, and with the goal to turn Hong Kong into a center for innovation and also to nurture world-class technology clusters. Looking around the world, various economic entities have invested a lot in research and innovation so as to enhance their competitiveness and encourage further economic growth. Hong Kong should seize the time, to actually in the 5 technology clusters and also to make use of the 3 applied platforms to further actually drive the development of Hong Kong invented, designed, and produced manufacturing chain so that we can see the growth of new industries and provide more job opportunities and prospects for Hong Kong. And also then we will see economic model that's sustainable economically. So the 5 technology clusters include electronics, biomedical technology, ICT, green technology, and material and precision engineering. So these are the technology clusters that the Hong Kong Science Park has invested. The 3 applied platforms include the smart cities and the solutions and also for technology and also robotic science. We all know that high-quality research facilities are conducive to promoting innovation and research and also to collaborate and to encourage collaborations among various stakeholders. In the past 14 years, the Hong Kong Science Park has developed the Park Sha Kok site in 3 phases. The latest phase 3 construction will be actually commence and be completed by the early part of 2016. Including, that would mean a total of 33,000 square meters in size in total. The latest figures show that the occupancy rate or the rental rate of the phase 1 and phase 2 of the 2 sites actually up to 84%. So the rental rate is up to actually, for phase 3, with about 75% of the GFA recently completed, the occupancy rate stands at 67%. And so, of the 570 local mainland and overseas R&D companies operating in HKSP, about 8,100 persons are engaged directly in R&D. Based on the current take-up rate, and also with data collected during our roadshows, it's expected that all 3 phases of the Hong Kong SP will be fully occupied by the financial year 2017-18. Last year, Hong Kong Science Park Corporation made a review of the use of the park and also to look into our development plan for the future. And as a result of the review, various suggestions are made. That is, for example, to increase our actual floor area by actually installing more buildings. Now we'll briefly explain the situation in relation to the Stage 1 expansion. In order to meet the short-term and medium-term demand for space by companies, the Phase 1 expansion of the Science Park expansion program, based on an economic benefits analysis, actually the Hong Kong Science Park has made significant contributions to INT industries. Besides actual economic gains, the Science Park also can increase job opportunities, attract foreign investments, and nurture startup companies and talents. That will help with further expansion of INT companies and also develop more ties with business partners. The Phase 1 expansion involves a site which is now empty in the northeast, and together it occupies an area of 1.18 hectares. This actually can, has the potential of adding to the density of the park, but we will continue to adopt an open design, for the site, entire park, so that there can be a harmonious environment. But on that site, we'll build a podium on which there will be two 14 and 15-story buildings with a total area of 73,760 square meters. There will be about 3,500 IT professionals who can work there. Members, please make reference to the pictures put on your table. Then you will know the overall conceptual design for the park. The pictures are in a folder, coming from our company. So the cost of the plan is estimated at $4.42 billion. If the funding can be approved by Electrical Finance Committee in the first quarter of 2016, then the construction work will commence in the second half of 2016. By 2020, it will be completed. Now I'm going to talk about the financing arrangement for the expansion. The Stage 1 expansion will involve three sources of funding. One, it is that because the government is the only shareholder, I would expect the government to make a direct injection of funds that makes up 65%, and also to provide a commercial loan with government guarantee that will make up 25%. And also the HK STPC will finance 10% of the project cost with its internal resources to demonstrate its commitment to the SPX1. Now I'm going to talk about the economic benefits to Hong Kong. In terms of actual economic and social benefits, we have few reasons to press ahead with the Phase 1 expansion, because our studies show that the Hong Kong Science Park actually bring in a return of $10.8 billion to Hong Kong. With expansion each year, the returns each year to Hong Kong will rise to $14.9 billion. When all the facilities in the expanded area are rented out, the return will go up further to $19 billion. And the direct and indirect jobs, related jobs to be created, will number 18,000. By Phase 3, when it's completed, the number of jobs created will rise to 24,000. In the end, totally 30,000 jobs. So we also see a number of INT companies being stationed at the park. The clustering of various companies could help attract top-notch IT companies from around the world to set up bases here, to have transfer of knowledge, and also to broaden the horizon of local young people so that they can further develop their talents and skills. To sum up, the Hong Kong SAR government has been actually committed to developing a knowledge economy here as the hub for the past decade or so. We have tried to position Hong Kong as the hub for information technology. And we also want to create a favorable environment to facilitate collaborations, to test out and to apply high technology. Therefore, we believe that Hong Kong should further invest in its infrastructure so as to use research and technology to stimulate further economic growth, to bring more job opportunities and job types to Hong Kong. Thank you. Now is the time for members to ask questions. 5 members have queued up. Xin Chung Kai. What are together 7? Well, each members will have 4 minutes. Ma Lai Guang first. Thank you. I'm very pleased to see that finally there will be an expansion plan. But, the companies at the science park, I'm sure the CEO know that they do think that there is a lack of space for these companies to expand. Last year, we lost the phase 4 land. Now, with your plan, I'd like to find out, firstly, in terms of distribution of companies, that there are some startups in comparison to some large companies based there, companies that you treated as anchors in the past. What is their proportion? And also, all along, we felt that, the science park should be used to attract international brands to come to do more research and development work. Because not everyone will have a startup. These companies actually should come and try to attract talents to join the sector. But in the past, it all comes back to the policies by the Innovation Technology Commission. We know there are major brands that want to come to Hong Kong, but they can't come for various reasons. So I think with your new expansion, I think your funding policy should actually back up the expansion as well, so as to attract good companies to come to set up bases and to develop further the site.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me first give you some statistics. Well, in the park, we have about 220 incubation companies. We have about 350 other companies. Local companies account for 63% of them. And from the mainland, we have about 12%. And from other countries, about 25%. And there is more or less the distribution. And for SMEs, they still account for the largest proportion, close to half of the 350 companies present. And 1/3 of the companies are slightly bigger. And for anchor companies, we have a few dozens. So that's more or less the distribution. What about in the next phase? Now, the trend is for many R&D companies to come to Hong Kong in innovative companies such as ICT. Well, they are now mature. For new startups, they are mainly bio, medicine, and green industries. According to information collected in recent road shows, many companies in these two sectors are interested to come to Hong Kong. And Internet of Things has also attracted more and more attention, and people are keen on using big data and Internet of Things. So I believe there are 3. We will have about technology and Internet of Things and big data. Please give time for the Commissioner to answer Mr. Mok's question. Yes. If foreign companies would like to come to Hong Kong, then they can go to our science park for their R&D portion. There will be support, and the rent would also be more favorable within the science park compared to other places. And if they want more space, well, the science park also operates industrial estates, and these are possible venues. And support in INT. Well, starting from this year, we have got the enterprise support scheme, and they can also benefit under the scheme. Although we do not provide direct subsidies like other places, but if they have R&D projects, we can support up to 1/2, subject to a ceiling of $10 million on one project. So if the budget is reasonable and there are R&D components, then we can sponsor up to half of the expenses, subject to a ceiling of $10 million. So for companies that are really interested in doing R&D in Hong Kong, we will provide subsidy. And if they would like to make use of our R&D capacity in our universities, they can also cooperate with our universities. If they have cooperation schemes with our universities, then they will pay for 1/2 of the R&D expenses, and will also sponsor half of the R&D expenses to be incurred by the universities. And the IP rights goes to the company. So if they're interested, then I think Hong Kong provide support on very favorable terms. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I noticed that the expansion was already done in the previous, in an earlier stage. The secretary has just assumed office. Now, according to the paper, by 2018, the science park will be saturated or up to capacity. And for new expansion, they won't be complete until 2020. If in the interim there are new companies, you don't have capacity to entertain them. So even if you have another 100,000 square feet, that is just very limited space. So what are your plans, Secretary? Do you think what you ask for here now will be able to meet your future plan for further INT development in Hong Kong? Because you must have your plans and ideas. So what is your view? After this, what should we do? I don't think we can just rely on further development of Hong Kong Science Park, etc. in the paper. Otherwise, we don't need an INT bureau. So can you tell us what is your assessment of our future development? Thank you. If I may try, because we've just had a discussion of this topic. I think phase 3 will suit our need until 2017. And for SPX1, it can last until 2020. Well, it's for completion in 2020. I think it can last until 2022 and 2023. And then we've also got some expansion plans for our industrial estates. Next time we'll come to you and brief you on our future plans for our IEs. In the past, we had single-story buildings in our IEs, but in the future we plan to build multi-story industrial buildings for modern day high value added industries. So next time we'll come to the panel to brief our members on our plan, which will serve us until 2030. There are different sites in Hong Kong under planning, and including the Loop area, the River Loop is under consideration. Land is one thing. The chief executive of the Science Park just told us that there are 5 focused industries plus 3 platforms. In the past, the scope of the science park was broader. Now we are more focused. We believe we will be able to do more. And it's also in line with future trend of technological development. And if we focus our limited resources into a few things, I think we will get better results. Mr. Ma said that the capacity will be saturated in 2018 and a new space will only be available in 2020. So what should we do in between? In fact, within the science park, there is a lot of consolidation going on. If existing tenants are no longer engaged in R&D, they have to be vacated. And for our own applied science institute, the laboratories are scattered in a few areas and they will be consolidated and we will have space freed up. And the science park also operates IEs. For existing tenants that are not making productive use of land offered to them, then the Science Park Corporation will discuss with them to recover the sites. And if appropriate, some tenants in STP will be moved to these sites to free up space for other activities. So we are grateful. We're confident that from now all the way to 2023 we will have space to satisfy demands, and we have other plans in the pipeline. And for new development areas, we'll see whether land can be reserved for industrial or I&T or R&D activities. Thank you, Mr. Martin Liu. Thank you, Chairman. If development in INT and ICT can bring new impetus for economic growth in Hong Kong, no one would object. But we are short of land. For high value added industries, they have specific site requirements. For large enterprises and even local enterprises, they have chosen other cities instead, and that will stifle our development in I&T and high value added industries. Well, according to the Commissioner, they have plans to consolidate the land use in I&Es so as to utilize land resources better in IEs. I'd like to ask the administration whether it is satisfied that this way we can satisfy the demand for land in the coming 5 to 10 years for industries such as robotics and high-end manufacturing industries related to our aging population and bio technology, so on and so forth. Do you think we have enough land to satisfy future demand? For details, I'll defer to Mr. Ma. Their review has covered all the sites occupied by our IEs and the science park. Mr. Ma, speaker is off mic. Please clip on the microphone. Last year, we did a review covering all 5 sites under our management, including the Science Park and 3 IEs under our management, and also the Innovation Center in Kowloon Tong. For modern manufacturing industry, we believe Hong Kong has a major role to play. If we only engage in R&D without commercialization, the contribution to our GPD will be very limited. So we did a few things in our last review. First, to plan the future development of Hong Kong Science Park as contained in the paper. And secondly, for IEs, we had two major moves. First, we'll no longer sell land to single users. In the past, we sold sites to single users to build their own factories, but in Hong Kong we're really short of land, so this was stopped. This has stopped since June last year. And for industries that are dying in Hong Kong, because when the sites were granted, we limit the use. The land is now idle, so we will recover these sites. In Chung Kwan O IEs, we have 3 sites with an area of about 7 hectares in total. We plan to build multi-story specialized industrial buildings. That is about 8 to 10 stories. And new emerging industries can make use of them. For instance, they may need a high clearance and also clean rooms. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Are you saying that we will not have manufacturing but just R&D? No. We will also plan for manufacturing activities. In Chung Kwan O, we have 3 sites at least, and we have recently recovered 1 site, and another site was returned by manufacturer. So we've got 6 new sites, either by acquisition or by handing over to us by the industries. We can build laboratories there. For the 3 sites in Chung Kwan O, we are planning what to do there. In around April next year, we'll come back to this panel to brief members on our plan. In the long term, yes, land undeniably is a big problem for us, but we still have some sites available, so we are quite sure that through proper planning we can create a lot of space for manufacturers and RD companies to carry out their activities. Any supplements from the Commissioner? No, thank you. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. Thank you. Because of time constraint, I will only ask 3 questions. According to the administration, when phases 1, 2, and 3 are entirely let, the contribution from our science part will increase from 10.8 to 14.9 to $19 billion. So what is meant by economic contribution, and how is it arrived at? And there is also a cap in government's undertaking. As we all know, cost overrun is normal nowadays in Hong Kong. It's the norm in Hong Kong. So we are worried that there will be cost overrun as well.
So if there is an overrun, what would you do? Would you just leave it unfinished? Or would you increase the financial investment, or what? For the DS, Mr. Chuk, well, we are members of the same football team. So looking at the situation of the Hong Kong Science Park is very much like the Hong Kong team, because the team uses a lot of overseas talents, and yet the standard hasn't increased much, of the whole team, and yet that actually takes away chances from the local players. And you're saying that 37% of your tenants are from overseas and 12% of your tenants are from China, and well, Mr. Mok Lai Kwong like overseas investments, but if you have under 50% of rentals given to locals, so are we actually depriving local operators of the office space? Commissioner, I think on how to work out the economic benefits, I'll leave it to the CEO to answer, because economic benefits, is part of their entire study. As for the ceiling, I think the government has set the ceiling. Should there be an overrun, the science park would not have to shoulder all the cost. And thirdly, about the tenants, I think with the science park all along, we have been in negotiation with them, and we know that 2/3 of the tenants are local companies. Actually, most of them are small-sized companies. And whether there are no overseas companies, of course, well, it's a matter of proportion. But under the 9 highlights, we do want to collaborate with top R&D companies from China and other countries. But do you have sort of a satisfaction rate in terms of the ratio between local and non-local companies? Have you set any preferable ratio, 1/3, half, or 2/3? Like, in my analogy of football team, the Hong Kong football team, if the whole team comprises overseas players, then there's no room, no chances for local players. You need to have a balanced proportion. It's like international schools. If all the students there are non-locals, then or are locals, then international schools would lose its meaning. Yes, I think we'll definitely, if it's the technology companies, will try to, satisfy their need. Okay, Secretary, Mr. Lam, I think your question is good, but as for the percentage, it really based on the size of the land. It doesn't mean the value added, because I'm talking about. You mean number of enterprise? I'm not talking about the size of the land. I think our concept is that in terms of tenants, we use a clustering concept. You have to, in order to have a value-added environment, you need to have a cluster. So what is enough, what is not enough? The best answer is, we have to know how many different types of foreign enterprises are needed to form the cluster. But you can see very clearly that local companies make up the majority. That's important because we want the foreign companies to nurture local tenants. At yesterday's meeting, I said the same thing. For some high technology areas, you need a top-end technology. Well, that's why Mr. Ma always likes overseas companies, because the overseas companies, top-end companies can help develop tenants here. Next, Ms. Lee Chia. Oh, Chairman, can you give the CEO 30 seconds to answer my question? My question is so good. CEO? Or DS or CEO? The first question first. Economic contributions. Well, the consultant we commissioned used a value-added approach. And they look at 3 areas: direct, indirect, and related. The direct value addedness is more easier, is, for example, of the 19 billion, of which 12.8 billion actually is based on the number of people who work at the park. The value addedness created by these people. In other words, the companies, how many products they've sold, deducting how many products they bought for them. So that's the equivalent to the salary to the 10,000 odd company, the staff, and the profits achieved. For the there are about 4.1 billion of profits that are indirect profits or returns. The definition of which is that there are a number of suppliers outside the park which would need to support the companies in the park, and of which about about 4.1 to 2 billion stores are indirect value addedness. And the third group is the related value. That is adding the direct and indirect benefits. The salaries with the staff with their salaries will consume, will spend money, that will drive up economic growth, and that actually will come to an estimate of $2 billion, the implied returns. So altogether that make up the $1.9 billion in return, $19 billion in return. Next one is Lily Chung. My other question then is the value addedness. Well, that you came to. My question is, have you calculated that is among the tenants. These tenants, what contributions have they made to the public coffer? And secondly, I disagree with what Mr. Lam Tai-Fai said, that is we need to have local talents. You know, science parks around the world actually would actually scout, products from the market and invite people or invite top companies to arrive there to do research and set up manufacturing plants. You have to look for talents worldwide. But what I'm dissatisfied with is that the science park, in order to achieve a high occupation rate, you try to entice local companies to set up bases there in the park and offer them discounts. So the more foreign companies coming to the park to do research and development, that is what's needed. That is not a problem to me. And secondly, my question is, right now, you have phase 1, phase 2, with occupancy rate of more than 80% or up to 90%. What are your income then from them? And after you've rented out 100% of the spaces, what will be the estimated income? Could you give me the answers? You have 30 seconds. Who will answer? I think in terms of income, I can ask the CEO to answer. On the first question about the income from the taxation, well, I don't have the income because these are confidential figures for the Inland Revenue Department. But simply put, our local domestic product actually derived from the concept of value addedness. Therefore, our economic benefits actually are tied to the concept of value addedness. We don't have the actual figures. As for we going around the world to look for tenants, well, before in the initial days, before the entire park was completed, when it's still mostly construction sites, we needed a bit more, sales and marketing work overseas. But now, actually, quite a number of companies are in direct negotiations with the CEO on using the land. So there's more demand for space than there is now. Okay, next one. Mr. Ma? Yes, on average, our income from rentals, all the rental contracts last 3 years. So it's about $17, $18. Now with about floor area of 2 million square feet rented out. So each year we have about $400 million in rental. With expansion, there will be new rents charged because by 2020 the rents will be different. Now we have about a rental income of $400 million. But simply put, I think the occupancy ratio or rate would be enough for us to cover the interest. And for a time we have actually broke even. Well, I'm concerned about the taxation income. That the same for BPI companies. Manufacturing and sales, if they're not in Hong Kong, then these companies, they're not doing manufacturing and sales in Hong Kong, can skip paying local taxes. So you need to be concerned about how to encourage companies to stay here to pay taxes here, local taxes. And Mr. Ma said you have rental income of about $400 million. If all your spaces are leased out, then you should be able to have rental income of $600 million. So if that's the case, now you are going on expansion that costs about $4 billion, and you ask the government to inject about $2.8 billion, and also to provide guarantee loan, or the government to give guarantee for a loan. Why would you need the government to provide a guarantee then? Why can't you fund that part as well? You have adequate money. I think that you should ask the government for I think you should shoulder the cost and to take out commercial loan, asking the government to be a guarantor, that would be enough. CEO, well, our income is not just to repay the loan or what. Please note that in the pamphlet I gave out to you, we're not here just to leasing out spaces. We also provide a lot of services. Our mission is not just to achieve a high occupancy rate. That's just a very small indicator. The most important is how many talents big companies we manage to nurture for Hong Kong, and to allow these tenants and companies to earn patent protection worldwide or to win awards. Yes, the rental income of $100 million is good, but then half of that money have to go to achieving our mission every year. Next one is Shin Chung Kai. Well, you just mentioned a rent of $17, $18. That is how much in comparison with the market rate? What percentage of the market rate is that? Because we are talking about the hidden subsidy there. Even though you have a rental income of $400 million, but how much is your hidden subsidy? Do you have a figure? Hidden? Yes, Chairman? It's very difficult to give you an actual estimate, but my rough estimate is, near the Science Park, there aren't any commercial buildings. The nearest will be the industrial buildings in East Kowloon, where a large number of new industrial buildings have been built, but the locations actually vary. Compare our rent with the rentals there. I think mine or ours is about 10 to 20% less than the rate there. But you say that yours in your park is low density buildings. But I don't know how to moderate the amount, because we're not a landlord. We're not running a actually rental business. We are a science park. And the rentals are not the most important, but now you have an occupancy rate of more than 90%. Do you have a strategy to raise the rental level to market rate? I know that you have broken even, but last year you lost about $100 million. Are you okay looking at the budgets over the past few years?
There is the room for you to increase the rent a little bit, so as to reduce the subsidy, so your P&O will look better, so that you can perhaps ask for less money from the government. A simple answer: yes, that's correct. Every year we do adjust the rent. Starting from 2016, there will be another round of adjustment, and this time round, the extent of adjustment would be much higher than what it was in the past, which was about 5%. If you look at the figures, it would be close to 10 to 20%. We're making use of this opportunity to now for new companies in Hong Kong, we will give them some incentive so that the actual rent paid will be slightly lower. But for the mature companies that have been here for, say, 6 years, then we will charge a higher level of rent starting from 2016. We'll do this. Thank you, Mr. Sin. Now, the comparison is hard to draw. You said that in Kowloon East, now, in fact, your location is excellent. It's very close to the border, and communications with the mainland is excellent, whereas the journey from East Kowloon is much longer. So I think you should tell your talents that the government is offering them concessions when you use services of the hospital authority, now you may only have to pay a few $100s, but if you look at the bill, you will know that the government subsidy is up to 90% odd. So can you do something similar for your park? That's true. We will do so starting from the 1st of January this year. We'll tell them the actual rent, and for some reasons we'll give you a concession. We will start to do this on January 1st. Mr. Lam Tai Fai, second time. And then Ms. Emily Lau. I'd like to follow up questions asked by some colleagues. First, is it true that you are trying to encourage people to use the science park because of the low occupancy rate? That was also discussed for Cyberport, but is it true? And we're told that many mainland companies will not come to Hong Kong. They'd rather go elsewhere. So we are not able to. Is it true that we can't attract companies, even those from the mainland, to come to Hong Kong? Commissioner or the chief executive officer? Well, that was a situation a few years ago before the science park was fully completed. I think it's hard for me to comment on history, but what I can say is this has certainly not happened in recent years. Now, recently, many companies would like to use science park, and according to Mr. they will check whether they are really R&D activities. If it's just for marketing, perhaps you're not welcome. So there is no longer the need to do so. But the situation is very different now. They're no longer a landlord. Well, if they come to a science park for its low rent, then you've come to the wrong place. I'll be very frank to them. And we have really not fight for tenants with the market. No, we remember very clearly the platforms we have in mind, and so the companies must suit the technology for these three platforms. And according to overseas companies, they said that the merits for Hong Kong is to be able to accommodate overseas talents. Thank you. What about mainland talents? Well, if they are incorporated in Hong Kong, we do not make a distinction here. Now, some say that mainland companies didn't like to come to Hong Kong, and because I couldn't visit the mainland, I don't know, are you aware of that? 10% of them were from the mainland. Or is it because there are more than enough, more than you can accommodate? Now, we are hunting for tenants, and we have very large enterprises in the mainland under negotiation. For large companies, the discussions will be very complicated. For instance, TCL wanted more than 100,000 square feet in Hong Kong, and they can create 600 jobs, and it was a technology company making television sets as well, and the director decided to set up a 16th R&D center in Hong Kong, so we're very pleased to know that. And we've also gotten other working on bio medicine, and we have some top-notch companies wanting to come to Hong Kong. They like Hong Kong because we have 2 medical schools in Hong Kong. So I think it is an opportunity for Hong Kong. Made in Hong Kong is an excellent brand. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. I really appreciate the answers by Mr. Alan Ma and also the Commissioner. My understanding is that we do not have enough room in the science park, and we don't have enough supply to meet the demand. And Cheng said that they had to go and trying to secure tenants back. I was surprised to hear that. I thought it was not in touch with the market. Fortunately, Ms. Annie Choi told me the real situation, so I won't be misled. Against that background, perhaps I can ask some practical questions. Can you tell us the distribution of sectors in the science park, and have there been changes since the last decade, so that we can know the latest trend and we can know whether we are in tune with the latest development? We can look back and we can also look forward. You will certainly pick and choose tenants. You also attach significance to their fame, right? For the trade mix, 10 years ago, when the science park was first established, our advantage industry was electronics. We still had a lot of electronic factories in Hong Kong. So to start with, we had a lot of electronics companies. We have about 350 companies. About 20% of them are electronic companies. And in the past 10 years, Hong Kong also made a very good start in ICT, including telephones and mobile phones you're using, 181, accounting for about 1/3 of the companies in the science park. These are the two largest sectors. In the recent years, I have started to look for new sectors such as biotechnology, medicine, medical technology, 10%, and green industry. Is not just in fashion, but we have about 50% close to biotechnology. And another sector, less talked of, development of new materials. Robotics would need such new materials for about 33 companies, and also small law firms engaged in IP registration. What about the future trend? Electronics and ICT are already mature, will not have any substantial increase. The growth will be in biotechnology in the future because of the aging population. There will be development of new drugs, vaccines, and technology to serve our aged population. And development of robotics technologies, we need sophistication machines and also new materials. I think there will be tremendous growth in the coming few years. What about industry-related sectors? Now, biotechnology, such as brain cell, is also a kind of industry. Development of new technologies and sophistication to support robotics, also very useful. ICT is mature, but because of the development of Internet of Things, is going to affect modern manufacturing industries. So it will not be about making mobile apps, but sensors and control units. Dr. N. Zhang. So Mr. Lam Tai, I thought that he was not in touch with the reality because he's no longer in the manufacturing sector. He is now in politics. Secretary You're here to ask for money. You need $2.8 billion from the government and a government guarantee of $1.1 billion. Since you are seeking funding, I'm very interested in your account. Secretary, I'd like to know whether the Director of Audit will audit the accounts of the science part as well. Which one? CEO? The Director of Audit or the Audit Commission is not responsible for the audit of the science park, but we have an internal audit unit to audit the 5 different branches of the science park. And just like other public company, we have independent non-executive directors on the board. So as legislators, can we have access to your accounts? Because the CEO told us that the science park is receiving $400 billion in rent, and it has spent $200 billion to nurture talents. There might be some misunderstanding, and even if I don't have any misunderstanding, Mr. Lam Tai-Fai may misunderstand. So you might have created or done a lot, made a lot of contribution to our economy. If we take a look at your accounts, we may say that, well, it's good value for money and will help you to lobby objectives. You know, when you come for funding the FC, someone in the FC are bound to oppose you. Please do not hide things from me. The more I know, the better I can to help you. Well, we're all law-abiding, so if you let me take a look at your accounts, then I can support you loud and clear. Ms. Emily Lau. So we are told that there will be manufacturing activities in Hong Kong, robotics, and also ICT. I'd like to know the number of jobs they can provide, because we want a manufacturing industry in Hong Kong so that not everyone has to be in the service industries. So TCL, we're told that 600 jobs will be provided. What about other high-ended activities? Is it true that there won't be so many jobs?
Commissioner, for the science park expansion alone, as mentioned in our paper, by the time when the entire expansion is finished, the number of jobs will exceed 30,000. That is, as for the other manufacturing activities brought along by the technology development, well, at this stage we can't give you any estimate, but we believe that should there be any high value added industries or any existing industries that actually can have high-end manufacturing procedures in Hong Kong, that can also result in new jobs, more technically oriented jobs, and also there may be jobs that are suitable for graduates, university graduates who specialize in engineering, mechanics, and so forth. So high-skilled professionals, those will be the what the jobs are suitable for. So it depends on the type of high-ended sectors or industries to be created, but we haven't got exact estimates. So there wouldn't be many jobs for sort of low-skilled workers. There won't be that many jobs for them. Yes, Chairman, I think whenever you have new industries, whether it's in the science park or elsewhere, Well, there will be other indirect posts. There will be some indirect posts because there need to be people to support them and to serve them. As for really, really low-skilled, workers, like jobs in mass manufacturing, that kind of labor, I think there won't be that many jobs in that of that nature. CEO? Yes, back in April, actually. By April, we will share with you our expansion plan. I hope that by then we'll give you estimates of the future economic contributions and the number of jobs to be created. But today we haven't got the, figures because we haven't finished up. But by April, I can give you more information. Yes, I do hope that there can be a variety of job opportunities for people. If it's all, top-end jobs, well, then there are still people in the grassroots who need jobs. But if there won't be any, but yet if there is a restaurant to be built next to your park, then there could be jobs, like for waiters, waitresses, cleaners, security guards, next to the park. When it comes to manufacturing industry, I thought at the mention of that will bring about large number of jobs. No, there won't be much manufacturing. Yeah, well, just come to our meeting then and see what chances there are. There are people of different, educational backgrounds in Hong Kong. They do need jobs. Next one is Lily Chiang, the third round. As I mentioned earlier, I'd like to find out about whether they really need to ask the government for the $2.8 billion. Can it actually delve into its own pocket instead? Like the airport 3 one-way system, the airport authority, in order to stay away from the finance committee, the authority has taken out, commercial loan. So Hong Kong Science Park, you have so much money. Your site is so big. Take, more than $10 billion, to invest in it. And now you're talking about just an expansion, a phase 1 expansion. Do we need to ask the government for money? Well, anyway, in principle, I support the secretary. You just take up your job, secretary, so I would support you wholeheartedly. But we do need to be aware, sometimes if you think that you can't tell me everything during a meeting, I won't mind having separate meetings with you. But please, you need to convince me first. If you can't convince me, then by the time your proposal goes to the finance committee, when there is filibustering, but filibustering is the norm now there, so then you'll be in trouble. Secretary, I think for this financing arrangement, if we, no matter what you have, what guarantee you have in your taking out a loan with the bank will have to look at your financial statements. If you don't have enough assets, then the bank would not lend you the money. Simple as that. I think when we discussed the plan with the Financial Services and Treasury Bureau, it also consider the same factors. It wanted the government to actually shoulder part of the cost, because also took into consideration how much money the bank would be willing to lend to the park. And also we need to see whether we have enough cash left to drive other projects. As CEO said, we're not just actually operating as a landlord. We want to drive the technological growth in Hong Kong. Yes, I'd just like to see your financial statements and your assets. So, Secretary, you've heard, from our members, we know that Science Park is not a tool, for business. You want to encourage more innovation and development, research, and to raise local standards, nurture new talents, so that we can move towards more high-end industries. So your place is not just there to actually receive rents. So I think you've heard members' views. We all support your expansion. But once the plan is passed here, you still need to submit your proposal to the Finance Committee. Just then, what Ms. Chen asked you, you should actually be prepared to give the answer. So by the time your plan goes to the Finance Committee, everyone will support and pass your request soon. Yes, can the secretary arrange, for us to go visit the park? Well, we've been to the park several times, but if it has some new developments, maybe you can arrange for us to go and have a look at the park. I'm sure Mr. Ma would very much welcome us to go there. As long as members have the time, I'm sure arrangement can be made. Thank you, Secretary, for leading the delegation. Now is item 6, AOB. There's no AOB, so meeting adjourned. Thank you.